Starting off this list in our number 10 spot, we have the Lesser Key of Solomon. This is a grimoire that is said to be cursed. It is said to contain spells that are used for summoning over 72 different demons, and just to add a little air of mystery, no one is exactly sure who wrote it. This is because the book is made up of a few different texts that have been compiled from somewhere around the 17th century. This book is said to be so cursed that even just having a copy of it will cause the owner to either experience constant bad luck or have the worst luck of all with passing away. People have shared their terrifying stories with the book, and they include the book's pages turning on their own, and another person shared that the book violently flew itself across the room at them. How terrifying would that be? While we aren't sure who wrote it, there are rumors or stories that suggest it might have been King Solomon. It is said that perhaps he wrote it for his son and then asked him to bury it with him in his grave. When being prepared for burial, a group of Babylonian philosophers found the book, and this is when they were visited by an angel who told them to hide the book from the unworthy. They then placed a spell on the book which was meant to keep it from getting into the wrong hands, and that is said to be how the book got its curse. In our number 9 spot today, we have the Untitled Grimoires. A witch's spellbook should never be messed with. I feel like that should be obvious, but I'll put that out there because apparently it isn't. The Untitled Grimoires are a set of handwritten spellbooks that were sold online for $14,000 in 2013. The books were written in the 1960s by a high priestess of Wicca who was the leader of a coven, and they detail things like spells, incantations, enchantments, and instructions on summoning spirits and demons. So, witch stuff. This is all fine and well unless you're sitting here thinking about how you don't believe. If you are a non-believer, it is best to stay as far away as possible from these books. The seller of the books warned that any non-believers who mess with the book will bring upon themselves a deadly curse, and on the first page of the book, the Wiccan herself wrote that proceeding with the book may have serious consequences. It reads, quote, "To those not of the craft, the reading of this book is forbidden. Proceed no further, or justice will exact a swift and terrible retribution, and you will surely suffer at the hand of the craft." That's a pretty sound warning, and one I probably wouldn't just roll the dice on. You know, just to be safe. In our number 8 spot today, we have The Sorrows of Young Werther. We've got a lot of books on this list that are said to contain magic and spells, and this one is a little different from the others on this list because it doesn't. This is a book that came out in 1774, and it is said to have had a large and negative impact on its readers since its release. Apparently, after this book came out, a huge wave of its readers ended up taking their own lives because of this strange and dark influence it had on those who read it. Young men would start trying to emulate the main character of the book by dressing like him, acting like him, that sort of thing, before following his horrifying actions in the book. This actually led to the book being banned in some countries, and for the most part, I'm pretty opposed to the banning of books, but I feel like this is one I can probably get behind. It is believed that even people who were in a completely fine headspace prior to reading the book would still be tempted to follow the dark path after reading it, which is exactly what has led people to believe that this book is cursed. In our number 7 spot today, we have the Picatrix. This is a grimoire that is said to contain a large amount of magic that is presumed to be from the 11th century. This text has long been considered pretty obscene because of the graphic content that exists within it. The pages contain some scholarly work with philosophy, astrology, and even some medieval science, which is actually pretty cool. But then there are things like recipes for concoctions that involve mixing human and animal blood, brains, urine, and other bodily fluids in with or other kinds of dangerous substances. The results are said to be magical, but I am far from convinced. This one definitely isn't the darkest or the spookiest on this list today, which is a nice refresher, and while some of what this book contains is definitely historically interesting, I think it's probably best to stay away from the magic and spells that lurk within. In our number 6 spot today, we have the Book of the Sacred Magic of Abramelin the Mage. This book was of course created by Abramelin, who was indeed a mage, and he created it as a gift for his son. At the time, his son was probably like, a book for my birthday? Thanks, I guess. Books are intimidating. Like, no one really liked Holes the first time they read it. Actually, that's a lie. That's still one of the best books I've ever read. But I bet his son was like Harry Potter with the Half-Blood Prince potions textbook, you know? At first you don't really know what to make of it, but that stuff comes in handy later. Anyway, in the early 1900s, this book was translated into English, and that is when the rumors of the book being cursed began to spread. I mean, this book contained spells, but it also contained curses, so I feel like that rumor likely makes a lot of sense. It is said that this rumor has to do with Abramelin's belief that everyone has their own personal personal demon. I'm just hoping that mine is cool and nice. The good thing about this book, however, is that it holds instructions on how to get your demon under control through rituals and supernatural situations, but then the kicker with this is that it is always exceptionally risky to reach out to the spirit world, so maybe that's why everyone was feeling like this book is cursed. It's looking like unless you absolutely know what you're doing, the contents of this book just might be too powerful. Those who have had bad experiences with the book explained either bad luck or hauntings from the spirit world are what await for those who dare to read it. In our number 5 spot today, we have the Book of Black Magic and Pacts. This book, written by A.E. Waite, is an exhaustive guide to all things occult. It looks at lore, magic, occultist history, and ceremonies. There's certainly no issue with this itself, but when in the wrong hands, things can certainly get a little dicey, especially considering this book has been referred to as one of the greatest overviews of occultism, and it includes a large number of magical spells from a variety of sources. This book is said to also contain rituals of transcendental magic and rituals of black magic. The author of this book, A.E. Waite, is said to have been a British scholarly mystic as well as a poet, and it is said that he was quite a prolific writer on both occult and esoteric matters. In our number 4 spot today, we have the Codex Gigas. This book is said to give the reader the ability to harness evil and negative energy, and is also often referred to as the Devil's Bible. This book was first discovered in 1648 and is massive at 36 inches tall, 20 inches wide, and 8.7 inches thick, and here's what's weird. It weighs 165 pounds. It is said that this book was actually written by a monk, but this monk had broken his spiritual vows. He was of course punished, but in a pretty extreme way, which was to be sealed behind a wall and then left there to die. Right before his passing, he realized he wouldn't be able to finish the book, which is when he then summoned Lucifer and asked him to complete it for him. If I knew you could do that, I would have summoned Lucifer to finish all my book reports in school. I guess I probably wouldn't have been cool with the whole selling your soul thing though. It is said that this book is filled with dark rituals, instructions on how to perform exorcisms, as well as a bunch of creepy drawings of the devil and other demons. Right now it is said that this book has 310 pages, but that it once used to have 320. The 10 pages that were ripped out were said to contain instructions on how someone could summon the devil, so hopefully whoever had those 10 pages destroyed them right away. In our number 3 spot today, we have the Grand Grimoire. This book is often referred to as the book with incredible power and has been called one of the darkest books in the world. While the author of this book is still unknown, the contents of it are things like black magic and dark, spooky secrets. It is believed that the book was written sometime around 1521, and it is split into 2 books. Book 1 details instructions on how to summon a demon and how to get the demon to do your bidding. The second book is split into 2 parts, and it details how to make a pact with a demon and how to command the spirit, but with less tools, which means it is significantly riskier than the instructions in the first book. Apparently in the book it even details how someone can call upon Lucifer or the devil, so I guess who needs those 10 missing pages in the Codex Gigas? Just go out and get the Grand Grimoire and you're right back in the devil summoning game, no worries. The book describes a few different demons, and it also gives spells that one can do for things like winning the lottery, love spells, becoming invisible, you know, magic stuff. While those spells certainly sound nice, magic like that always comes at a cost. People fear the Grand Grimoire because they worry that if anyone reads it fully, then the devil will enslave their soul. No thank you. In our number 2 spot today, we have the Book of Soyga. Anything that is referred to as the Book of Death is definitely one I'll most likely spend some time trying to stay away from. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but that is the least inviting thing I've ever heard in my life. If you don't agree with me on that sentiment, however, the tough thing with this one is that nobody knows exactly what language it is written in. The beginning part of the book definitely contains some spells and incantations. The ending of the book really is where the most mystery lies, and trying to decipher it is no easy task. It is said that a scholar named John Dee once attempted to decode the secret book, and it was so difficult that he needed to call on the angel Uriel for help. Even the angel didn't have the answers and instructed John to call on the archangel Michael, who would be the only one who was able to interpret the text. Here's where this mystery book gets more mysterious though. After John Dee passed away in 1608, the book basically just vanished and no one knew where it went, but then, like magic, it just reappears in the 19th century. Despite this extremely interesting story and how it kind of draws you in like you wish you could crack the code that this book holds, it's best to stay away from because it is said whoever is able to decipher the ending of this book will inevitably die 2.5 years later, so is it really worth it? You don't even get a cool phone call to give you a heads up either. No girl coming out of the well, you just get me telling you on the internet This is the worst sequel to The Ring ever. In our number 1 spot today, we have the Munich Manual. Also referred to as the Necromancer's Manual, this grimoire comes to us from the 15th century and is a text that is largely focused on demonology and necromancy. A lot of grimoires have both good and dark magic, but this is one that focuses solely on the dark black magic. There are 3 different sections to this one. The first section deals with illusionist magic and spells that trick people into seeing things that aren't there. The next is psychological magic, which is meant to use emotions, politics, and things like that in order to gain power over another individual. And if these 2 weren't scary enough, the third section is divinatory spells, which are meant to allow the reader to see into the past, present, or future. One of the most well-known parts of this book is the part that includes instructions on how to make the Mirror of Lilith, which is for the purpose of divination we just talked about.
Number 10, the Codex Gigas. We'll kick this list off on a promising start. This codex is believed to give the reader the ability to harness evil and negative energy. Nice, we love that. The book is commonly referred to as the Devil's Bible, which in my opinion has a better ring to it. First discovered in 1648, the codex itself is massive. It's 36 inches tall, 20 inches wide, and 9 inches thick. Just like Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. Thing is just stacked. So thick. It weighs 165 pounds, so you can't just, put it in your backpack and go about your day. It's not going anywhere. It's said that this book was actually written by a monk, but this monk had broken his spiritual vows. And by doing so, he was of course punished. He was sealed behind a wall and then left there forever. Horrible way to go nonetheless, but right before his untimely departure, he realized he wouldn't be able to finish said book. So he called for backup. He called upon Lucifer. Yeah, that's a big yikes, we don't do that there. So afterwards, the book became immensely cursed, and it's now said that the book is filled with dark rituals and even instructions on how to perform exorcisms, plus, a few creepy drawings of the devil and other demons. We love that. It doubles down as a coloring book. Nice. Hope you have lots of red. Right now, it's said the book has 310 pages, but it once used to have 320. Yeah, those 10 pages that were ripped out were said to contain instructions on how someone could summon the devil. So whoever has those 10 pages, hope you didn't lose them. Good game. Burn those immediately, please. Number 9, the Grand Grimoire. Again, I'll admit this one's a catchier title. In a world where we can figure out how to do anything online, and I mean anything, even fixing a sink with ramen, God forbid you need to do that, there you go. While the author of this book is still unknown, the contents of it are of course filled with black magic, dark spells, secrets of the underworld, all that horrible stuff. It's believed that the book was written sometime around 1521 and it's now split into 2 books. Oh, wow, even back in the 1500s we had cliffhangers. Awesome, no spoilers. Book 1 details instructions on how to summon a demon and how to get the demon to do your bidding. The second book is split into 2 parts, and it contains details on how to make a pact with the demon and how to command the spirit, but with less tools, which means that it's, significantly riskier than the instructions in the first book. It's like, here's how to make a car, and now here's how to summon a car. You know what I mean? It's a little fishier in this one. The book describes a few different demons, and it also gives spells that one can do, not haunting things, but nicer, I guess, like winning the lottery, love spells, becoming invisible, superpowers, I guess, both good and evil. While those spells certainly sound nicer, magic like that always comes at a cost, right? We've seen Hocus Pocus. We've seen WandaVision, right? We've seen all the bad stuff, bad examples with witches. We can't have what we want all the time, okay? Leave the Grand Grimoire at your local library. Number 8, the Book of Soyga, aka the Book of Death. Okay, this one sounds promising already. Nobody knows what language it's written in, so right off the bat it's haunting. But it appears the first part of the book details different spells and incantations of some sort. Then the ending gets fishy. That's when many of our questions come into play here. All the letters in this final part are written in separate boxes, and despite people trying their absolute best, it's impossible to decipher. Yeah, not even Tom Hanks can do it, and he was in the Da Vinci Code, so. An old scholar named John Dee attempted to decode the book, and he apparently called upon an angel named Uriel for help. The angel explained to him then that only the archangel Michael is able to interpret said text, so that's the mystery the whole time. It's only for angel eyes, my friend. Apparently after John Dee passed away, this book mysteriously just vanished. It was never to be seen again after 1608 until the 19th century. That's when it magically reappeared again. Somehow. We don't know how, but it's just, there it is again. Where it went for so long, we have no idea. But if you lay your eyes on this book, well, you'll die around 3 years later, so moving on. Number 7, The Orphan Story. Getting your books published is always the hardest part, right? At least that's what the internet says. I've never written a book. Not yet. In this case, it's next to impossible. The orphan story was originally written in the early 1600s, but it didn't end up getting published until as recent as 2018. Quite the delay if you ask me. Now the tale itself, in its pages, it's a classic coming-of-age tale. A boy travels across the world, tries some new cheese or spaghetti. It's nice. Certainly nicer than the Devil's Codex, right? But the real-life history surrounding the publication process is what's cursed here. The book's 2018 publisher, Belinda Palacios, who worked on the book for 2 years, she explained that throughout those 2 years, she was often warned of the cursed book, and how every publisher who had tried to work on it before in the past ended up dying in a tragic way, shape, or form. Some sort of Final Destination type accident, right? Before they could finish publishing the book. So when Belinda looked into this, it turned out it was all true. Her research showed that those who had tried to edit the book before her either found themselves in horrible accidents or with a strange illness, one of the two. Now luckily Belinda made it through the process unscathed, so let's hope that maybe the curse has been lifted. Number 6, Untitled. The best tracks on rap albums are always the ones that are titled Untitled, you know what I mean? Kendrick's entire album, I'm like, you get the idea. The Untitled Grimoires are a set of handwritten spell books that were sold online for $14,000. This was back in 2013. Also, pretty good price, may I add, for what's about to come. The books were written a long time ago by a high priestess, the leader of a coven, and they included spells, incantations, enchantments, and instructions on summoning spirits and demons. All the good stuff. 30 pages or less, here we go. The seller of the books warned that any non-believer who messes with the book will bring upon themselves a deadly curse. And on the first page of the book, the priestess herself wrote that proceeding with the book may have serious consequences. It literally says, quote, "To those not of the craft, the reading of this book is forbidden. Proceed no further, or justice will exact a swift and terrible retribution, and you will surely suffer at the hand of the craft." Yeah, the craft. We love that. So if you love buying old books for thousands of dollars, maybe avoid the Untitled Grimoires. Yeah, go with something a bit more, you know, titled. A more jazzy grimoire. I don't know. I'm gonna go get a grimoire after work. I'm gonna go try one out. Nice 700-pound book made of dust. Number 5, the Book of Black Magic and Pacts. This one has an author that isn't a demon, which is nice. How fun is that? Off to a better start. The Book of Black Magic and Pacts was written by A.E. Waite. It covers lore, magic, cult history, and ceremonies. This book has been referred to as one of the greatest overviews of occultism, and it includes a large number of magical spells from a large number of sources. The book is also said to contain rituals of black magic. This is like, don't touch this kind of stuff, right? How many X-Men comics do we need? Stop reading these books. The author of this book, A.E. Waite, apparently he was a British poet as well. Nice, we love that. I love a good haiku, especially when it's about cults. Number 4, the Picatrix. This is a grimoire, of course, that is said to contain a large amount of magic that is presumed to be from the 11th century. We're not exactly sure. The pages contain some philosophy, astrology, and even some medieval science, which at first sounds cool, but these sciences are really just recipes for concoctions that involve mixing human and animal DNA. Like mixing urine and opium. You know, stuff like that where nobody should be really reading or trying any of it. The results were promised to be magical, but I'm far from convinced. This is really gross. This one definitely isn't the darkest or the spookiest on the list, which is a nice little refresher as we get to our grimoire ending here. And while some of the contents in this book is definitely historically interesting, I guess, I think it's probably best to just stay away from magic and spells in general. Number 3, Sorrows of Young Werther. We've got a lot of books on this list that are said to contain magic and spells and incantations. That's a fun word that I've said about 1,100 times already. This one here is a little different from the others on this list because it doesn't have any of those spells in it. No, this is a book that came out in 1774 and it's said to have a large and negative impact on its readers since its release. So apparently after this book came out, a huge wave of its readers ended up taking their own lives because of the strange and dark contents that were in the book. Young men would start to emulate the main character of the book by dressing like him and then acting like him before ultimately following his dark actions in the book as well. This actually led to the book being banned in some countries, which here I can agree with. Yeah, something's clearly off here. It's believed that even people who were in a healthy place mentally prior to reading the book would still be tempted to follow that dark path after reading it. Hence, cursed, right? Yeah, grab Game of Thrones, skip Sorrow of Young Werther, please. Also reach out if you have any dark thoughts. That's much easier than renting a demonic codex. Number 2, the Book of the Sacred Magic of Abramelin the Mage. A little wordy for a title, in my opinion, but here we go. When you're an expert in magic, you probably don't give the same sort of gifts that the non-magical folks do, right? You're like, hey, here's a Rubik's Cube, I guess. So it's no surprise that Abram Mellon gifted his son a book of spells and curses, right? Just some Doctor Strange stuff right there. The classic Malfoy method, 5 points to Slytherin. There we go. They're learning young. In the early 1900s, this book was translated into English, and ever since then there have been rumors swirling that the book is cursed. I mean, its source material is literally curses, so yeah, that checks out. Rumor has it that the cursed nature of this book, in part, has to do with Abram Mellon's belief that everybody has their own personal demon. This book holds instructions on how to get your demons under control by, reaching out to the spirit world. Yeah, if you're trying to quit smoking, don't read Abram Mellon's magical book. Stick to Nicorette. I think that's safer. I think it's safer. Unless you absolutely know what you're doing, the contents of this book might just be too powerful to handle, my friend. Those who have had bad experiences with the book explained either bad luck or hauntings soon followed. But they quit smoking, so hey, who knows? And finally, number 1, the Munich Manual. Also referred to as the Necromancer's Manual, this grimoire comes to us from the 15th century and is a text that is largely focused on demonology and, of course, necromancy. A lot of grimoires have both good and dark magic, but this is one that focuses solely on the dark, horrible, black magic aspect, as you could have guessed. There are 3 different sections to this one. The first section deals with illusionist magic and spells that trick people into seeing things that aren't there. Some kind of low-key magic, right? The next is psychological magic, which is meant to use emotions or politics and things like that in order to gain power over an individual. So Professor X, let's say. And the third section details instructions on how to make the Mirror of Lilith. Yeah, this mirror has you looking younger than ever. Once properly constructed, the user can then see into the past, present, or future. Just Professor X again. I took a look this morning and everybody who watched this video actually hit that thumbs up. It was wild, I couldn't believe my eyes. I was like, thank you Mirror of Lilith, this is beautiful. All those likes and thumbs up. All for most amazing. Awesome.
Starting off this countdown, we have the Devil's Bible. The Devil's Bible, otherwise known as the Codex Gigas, is a massive book said to harbor an immense amount of negative energy. I mean, duh, it's called the Devil's Bible for a reason. So basically, legend goes that this 157-pound book was written by a monk. But this monk broke his spiritual vows, and so he was sentenced to be sealed behind a brick wall and left to die. But the night before his death, he realized he wouldn't be able to finish this book. So he summoned Lucifer and asked him to complete the book for him. In return, he offered him his soul. So legend goes that the book was finished by the devil himself. What's creepier is that some of the pages are filled with drawings of the devil and other demonic entities. On one page, there's a 19-inch drawing of Satan. The book also contains a bunch of dark rituals and texts. If the book got in the wrong hands, who knows what damage they could do.
Coming in at number 9, we have the Munich Manuscript, a book that has baffled all of the best minds in the world. It was discovered by antiquarian book dealer Wilfred M. Voynich near Rome in an old chest in 1912. It immediately caught his attention due to its lackluster appearance, which was unlike all the other pretty ones in the compartment. But what he found inside became a mystery that keeps getting stranger. Apparently the codex was purchased by Roman Emperor Rudolph II, who believed it was written by Roger Bacon. But Bacon lived in the 12th century and the paper carbon dated to the 15th century, so already Inside the book has remained incomprehensible to even the most impressive cryptographers and linguists. They've identified at least 25 to 30 characters, and though the writing and illustrations don't make sense, it doesn't appear to be gibberish. Alan Turing all the way to artificial intelligence have all taken turns, but to no avail. From images of planets long extinct and intricate astrological signs, no one knows what the hell it means, but many speculate that it could have been written, get ready for this, by aliens. Of course, when we don't know the answer, aliens! It's the only logical solution. But if it does belong to aliens, what if they want it back?
And at number 8 we have Untitled Grimoires. Grimoires are witches' spell books, but it's said that they need to be burned after the witch's death. However, this one was not burned. Instead, it was kept, and in 2013 it sold on a website. It was sold for $13,865. That's a lot of money for a book. But here's the thing, the book came with a warning. It said, and I quote, "To those not of the craft, the reading of this book is forbidden. Proceed no further, or justice will exact a swift and terrible retribution, and you will surely suffer at the hand of the craft. So basically, the book is cursed if it falls into the wrong hands. This book is also said to contain a number of curses, enchantments, and spells. Also, it tells you how to perform an exorcism, you know, just in case you summon a demon and then everything goes wrong. I mean, any book that tells you how to summon ghosts and demons should just be burned. I'm sorry.
Coming in at number 7, we have Tomino's Hell, and here is yet another book that you should never read, because if you do, your lives and the lives of those you love could be in jeopardy. Tomino's Hell was written by Yamamoto Uniko in a book that's titled The Heart is Like a Rolling Stone. Legends of how this curse started vary, but results such as vomiting glass and loved ones dying tragic deaths continue to be associated with the poem. One radio show host tried to read it aloud on air, and halfway through started to feel ill and disturbed and wasn't able to finish it. He continued to feel ill, and a few days later he got into an accident that resulted in him having to get 7 stitches. To this day, he tries not to even think about the poem and warns other people against it. But I thought I'd surprise everyone today and read the poem out loud, so we'll see. But let's see if this myth is true, shall we? Here's the poem. Just kidding! I'm not gonna read it out loud, and nor should you.
In our 6th spot, we have the Book of Soyga. Sounds weird, I don't know if I pronounced it wrong, but we're gonna roll with that. This book has quite the history behind it. So it was created in the 16th century and is a Latin essay all about demonology. Apparently, there are only 2 copies in existence. One was owned by a man named John Dee and his brother. They both were determined to translate the entire book. Upon translating it, they figured it was a book filled with dark rituals and incantations. But the last 36 pages were untranslatable. He became so obsessed with trying to figure out what the last pages read that it drove him to madness. After his death, the books were lost for the longest time until 1994. That's when 2 copies were found. Now legend goes that those that successfully decipher the final pages of the book will die within 3 years. So it's up to you. Will you tempt fate and decipher the pages? Or should we burn the book so that no one else dies? I'll go with the latter.
The Orphan's Story, coming in at number 5. This book started out innocent until it started racking up victims. The Orphan's Story is an adventure book about a Spanish teen who ventures to Lima to party like there's no tomorrow, and then there's other adventures and romantic stories and yada yada yada. It was written by an Augustinian friar named Martin de Leon between 1605 to 1615, who'd also been to Lima, but he never wanted to get it published for fear that it would taint his chances in becoming archbishop, but that didn't stop people from trying, and maybe it should have. When it was rediscovered in the Hispanic History Archives, many were discouraged from working on it as it was believed to be cursed. Dun dun dun! Those who had tried to publish it before had all died, one from a random car accident and the other from an entirely mysterious disease. No one touched it for years until one brave man took on the task once more. It was actually published for the first time in 2018, and the publisher believes that the curse has finally been lifted. Not that there wasn't a curse in the first place, but like maybe things will get worse now, who knows? Maybe the curse is waiting for, I don't know, 3 years.
In our 4th spot, we have the Book of Sacred Magic. This 15th century book was written by a man named Abra Malin, who was a mage, aka that's just a fancy word for a magician. Well, he wrote this book for his son, and apparently it's cursed, because why not give your son a cursed book? I mean, it probably wasn't cursed when he got it, but that's besides the point. Anyways, in the 1900s, the book was translated into English, and soon after, people deemed it a curse. Throughout the book, it talked about rituals on how to control your demons. Abra believed that every person had their own demon, not like a metaphorical one, but like a literal one. It also talked about how to perform other supernatural acts. In the end, it was believed that whoever owns a copy will be haunted by the spirits, and bad luck will befall on them. Again, possessions and haunting and bad luck, it's a no from me.
Coming in at number 3 with the Necromonicon. Again, I'm gonna bring this up, but you know that scene from The Mummy when Evie is like, what harm has ever come from reading a book? And then proceeded to unleash hell by reading the Book of the Dead? Well, lesson learned, right? No, because, the Necromonicon, also called the Book of the Dead, is an ancient grimoire, and as we know, we should burn grimoires, but we don't. And it's bound in human skin and has inspired many horror films like Evil Dead. This book is so powerful, some even say one word from its pages and horrors beyond your wildest nightmares will emerge. This book was featured as a fictional object in H.P. Lovecraft's stories, and he even allowed authors to cite it as a source so it could become more real. Lovecraft insisted it was made up, but many tried and true fans of the occult think otherwise. They think that the book in fact exists, but it's hidden so it will never cause any harm. HP says the idea for the book came to him in a dream, but many say that the spirit of the book chose Lovecraft to reveal it, meaning there are people hunting for the real thing. My advice? Don't. Leave it alone. Again, we don't need it. Demons can stay where they are, okay?
In our second spot, we have The Great Omar. This is another book that has quite the dark past. So basically, in 1909, a man named Sangorsky decided to create a much fancier version of the book, The Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam. I'm gonna apologize right now, I know I totally butchered that name. Now, he bejeweled it and made the cover look absolutely beautiful. It took him 2,500 hours to create. In the end, it had 1,500 precious/semi-precious stones, 4,967 leather inlays, and 600 sheets of 22-karat gold leaf. It's honestly a very beautiful book. But the thing is, no one wanted to buy this super expensive book when they could literally just get one for much cheaper. But eventually it was put up for auction, but it only sold for £450. Now, the book was shipped, but it never got to the buyer. Why? Well, the ship it was being transported on was the Titanic, and the book went down with the ship. Then only a few weeks later, the creator of this book mysteriously drowned. Ain't that a freaky coincidence? But that's not all. A second version was created called The Great Omar II. It was then placed in a bank vault, but the bank was hit by a bomb during the London Blitz of World War II, and this copy was destroyed as well. Then a third copy was created because they didn't learn their lesson, and it was donated to the British Library, where apparently it's still to this day. But due to its dark past, many believe that this book is cursed, and that bad things will happen to whoever owns it.
Coming in at number 1, you know what sucks is that there's a PDF version of this book that Lindsay and I found, and we were both like, no! Like, we opened it by accident, we're like, no, I don't want to read this, I don't want to read this, I don't want to read this. It's really creepy. So this one is The Lesser King of Solomon. The Lesser King of Solomon, or the Goetia, is one of the most famous grimoires and contains a summoning spell for over 72 demons, and no one knows who wrote it. Written entirely in Latin, the book dates back to the 14th and 15th century, though any remaining manuscripts date to the 16th and 18th. Legend has it that King Solomon originally had it written for his son and asked him to bury it with him in his grave when he died. But supposedly, a group of Babylonian philosophers discovered it while repairing his tomb, and one of them was said to have had a vision sent to him by an angel that told him to hide the book from the unworthy. He did so by casting a spell on it, which clearly didn't work. The first few chapters contained instructions on how to summon and trap demons in this world, which, by the way, why? I doubt they're as sexy as Lil Nas, okay? But if you're looking for love, the book also contains instructions on how to find it and also how to become invisible. Obviously now, copies of this book can be found on the internet, but please, for the love of all this stuff, like, just don't. Just burn it, you know? Have someone burn it from the internet. It's just too much out there. We don't want to know what's on the other side just yet, anyways.
Number 10. Codex Gigas. Right off the hop, this book is said to give the reader the ability to harness evil and negative energy, and it's often referred to as the Devil's Bible. Already into it, here we go folks. The book was first discovered in 1648 during the 30 Years' War. The Swedish army looted Prague, and amongst the haul was the Codex Gigas. Yeah, hard to miss this one. 36 inches tall, 20 inches wide, and 8.7 inches thick, coming in at 156 pounds. Yeah, it's a little thicker than Bernstein Bears. You're not gonna miss it. It's said that this book was actually written by a monk, but said monk had broken his spiritual vows. He was of course punished, but in a pretty extreme way, which is said to be sealed behind a wall and then left there for eternity to die. Just behind a wall forever. Right before his passing though, he realized he wouldn't be able to finish said book, which is then when he summoned Lucifer and asked him to complete the book for him because he was busy, you know, behind a wall and stuff. Yeah, like unemployed professors back then. The devil's like, I'll do that essay for you, no sweat, take a 5, brother, sell your soul, I got you, I'll script it. This book is filled with dark rituals, instructions on how to perform exorcisms, as well as a bunch of creepy drawings of the devil and other demons. Just for fun. Right now it's said that the book has 310 pages, but that once used to be 320. Those 10 pages that were ripped out were said to contain instructions on how someone could summon the devil. So hopefully whoever has those pages, burn them, or I don't know, made a nice birthday card with them. That'd be fun. Number 9, the Book of the Sacred Magic of Abramelin the Mage. A little wordy in my opinion, but it's also a pretty good book. This book was of course created by Abramelin, who is in the title, who is indeed a mage, and he created this book as a gift for his son. Yeah, Lego wasn't a thing yet, and neither was fun, so he got him a magical book. Thanks, Dad. In the early 1900s, this book was translated into English, and that's when the rumors of the book being cursed began to spread, of course. I mean, this book contains spells, but also contains curses, so I feel like that rumor, it checks out, you know, people are talking for a reason. Abramelin believed that everybody had their own personal demon. The good thing about this book, however, is that it holds instructions on how to get your demons under control through rituals and spiritual situations. The kicker is that it's always risky to reach out to the spiritual world, so it's really not worth it, right? That's why everybody thinks this book is so cursed. Unless you absolutely know what you're doing, the contents of this book might just be too powerful for you, my friend. Those who have had bad experiences with the book explain either bad luck or hauntings from the spiritual world are awaiting for those who read it. So yeah, stick with Arthur or Berenstain Bears, really keep it cool. Number 8, the Book of Black Magic and Pacts. At first I thought this said Black Magic and Pets, and I got really excited for a hot moment. This book, written by A.E. Waite, is a guide on all things occult. It looks at lore, magic, occultist history, and of course ceremonies. There's certainly no issue with all this in itself in a book, but when this book is in the wrong hands, things can get a little dicey, especially considering this book has been referred to as one of the greatest overviews of occultism, and it includes a large number of magical spells from a variety of sources. Yeah, they all have spells in them. They're all like Harry Potter. They're all like the Chamber of Secrets, that book that he stabs with the tooth. They're all like that. They're all bad. The author of this book, A.E. Waite, is said to have been a British scholarly mystic as well as a poet, and it's said that he was quite a prolific writer on both the occult and esoteric matters. Nice, but he was an occult or two, but he was great with a pen. Number 7, the Munich Manual. Also referred to as the Necromancer's Manual, that's always fun. This grimoire comes to us from the 15th century and is a text that is largely focused on demonology and necromancy. Two things you want in a book. A lot of grimoires have both good and black magic, but this is one that focuses solely on the dark, bad side, know what I mean? Just in case you're a very specific demon, this book is for you. You won't believe number 4. Dive in, here you go. There are 3 different sections to this one. First section deals with the illusionist magic and spells that trick people into seeing things that aren't there. The next one is psychological magic, which is meant to use emotions, politics, and things like that in order to gain power over an individual. And if these two weren't scary enough, the third section is the divinatory spells, which is meant to allow the reader to see into the past, present, or future. Imagine seeing into the present. What a waste that would be. You're just looking in a cauldron like, hey, that's me looking into the cauldron right now. It's like the game Portal, you're like, oh my god, it's crazy, it's so trippy. All sections are bad news in this book, but one of the most popular parts of said book is the part that includes instructions on how to make the Mirror of Lilith. We have our own Mirror of Lilith right here. I look into it every day. No spoilers, I'm only on season 27 of Life. Please don't tell me how I'm gonna pass. Thanks. Number 6, The Orphan Story. This book was originally written in the early 1600s, but it didn't end up getting published until 2018, because, you know, things take a while sometimes. We were a bit busy. The Orphan Story is about a 14-year-old Spanish boy who heads to the Americas, you know, a classic coming-of-age tale, a feel-good story, dare I say, until it isn't anymore. This is exactly the reason why it took so long for said book to be published. While the curse in this book doesn't come from the story itself, there's something that happens, there's something dark lurking in those pages, and people end up taking their own lives. It's horrible. The book's publisher, Belinda Palacios, who worked on the book for 2 years, explained that throughout those years, she was often warned of the cursed book and how every publisher who had tried to work on it before ended up passing away in a mysterious, tragic kind of way before they could finish the book. You know what I mean? Some Final Destination stuff would kind of happen here. Her research showed that those who tried to edit the book before either found themselves in horrible accidents or with strange illnesses, right? One of the two. Luckily, Belinda made it through the process unscathed for now, so let's just hope that maybe the curse has been lifted. Either way, I can't read, so I'm not gonna get there anytime soon. Number 5, The Grand Grimoire. This book is often referred to as the book with incredible powers, and it's been called one of the darkest books in the world, right next to Holes. Those two are tied right now. While the author of this book is still unknown, classic, the contents of it are things like black magic, dark spooky secrets, occult information, anything I just talked about, more of that. It's believed that the book was written sometime around 1521 and it's split into 2 books. Yeah, classic. He's like, but wait, There's more. Tune in next week. $15. Give me it right now. Book 1 details instructions on how to summon a demon and how to get the demon to do your bidding, do your house chores, whatever you want. Maybe even answer some phone calls. Sure. The second book is split into 2 parts, and it details how to make a pact with the demon and how to command the spirit, but with less tools, which means that it's significantly more riskier than the first book. They're like, hey, you can do this, but it's gonna cost you. Come to this book. People fear the Grand Grimoire because they worry that if anyone reads it fully, then the devil will then enslave their soul. Okay, you said it. Returning that one. Next, number 4, the Book of Soyga. Anything that is referred to as the Book of Death? Ho, count me in. I'll renew my library card right now. Let's do it. Let's amp it up. The Book of Soyga, this one's tough because nobody knows what language it's written in, right? So that's obviously a challenge. The beginning part of the book definitely contains some spells or incantations, and the ending of the book is really where the most mystery lies, and trying to decipher it is not that easy. It's said that a scholar called John Dee once attempted to decode the secret book, and it was so difficult that he needed to call on an angel, the angel Uriel, for help. Everyone's calling demons and angels for help. I'm like, can I do that? If I call in sick one day, can I call a demon? I don't know, we could do that. Even the angel didn't have the answers on this part, and he instructed John to call on the archangel, Michael, who would be the only one who was really able to interpret said text. After John Dee passed away in 1608, the book basically just vanished. No one knows where it went, but then, like magic, it just reappeared again in the 19th century. Despite this extremely interesting story and how it kind of draws you in, whoever is said to read the book will die 2.5 years later. So, is it worth it? Do we want to have 2 years left of our life for a book? If it's Avatar 2 and they're like, hey, you have 2 years to live after you see Avatar 2, I'd be like, okay, maybe. But this book, I'm like, nah, none of that, I'm good. Number 3, the Picatrix. This is a grimoire that is said to contain a large amount of magic that is presumed to be from the 11th century. The pages contain some philosophy, some astrology, some medieval science, stuff like that. And then there's things like recipes that involve mixing human and or animal blood. So it's one of those. Not so fun, and yeah, it's not so fun. Not a lot of pictures to color in, you know? The results are said to be magical, of course, but in reality, it's just a book on mixing horrible things together, like illicit substances and urine. Mix them together, put them in a cauldron. I'm like, no. How about that? Number 2, Sorrows of Young Werther. This is a book that came out in 1774 and it's said to have a large and negative impact on its readers right since its release. The book will summon your own inner demon, apparently. Right after this book came out, a huge wave of its readers ended up taking their own lives because of this strange and dark influence that this book had on those who read it. Young men would start trying to emulate the main character of the book by dressing like him, acting like him, that sort of thing. Not really shocking here. But the book ultimately led to horrifying actions, so in real life, these guys would also take their own lives. It was horrible. This actually led to the book being banned in some countries because, well, it's not worth the risk. See, things like this make me curious, of course, but I don't think I'd ever want to read something that depressing anyways, you know what I mean? Number 1, the Lesser Key of Solomon. This one is said to contain spells that are used for summoning over 72 different demons. And just to spice it up a little bit, to this day, no one is exactly sure who wrote it. Yeah, it's still anonymous back there, penning it up. Could have been one of the 72 demons, who knows? The Lesser Key of Solomon is made up of a few different texts from somewhere around the 17th century. This book is said to be cursed, so even having a copy of it will cause the owner to experience constant bad luck or have the worst luck of all by, passing away, biting the bullet. One person shared that the book violently just flew itself across the room at them, just like Interstellar. We just got a haunted bookshelf now to take care of. All because you bought a weird book at a garage sale. Know what I mean? While we aren't sure who wrote it, there are rumors or stories that suggest that it might have been King Solomon. It is said that perhaps he wrote it for his son and then asked him to bury it with him in his grave. When being prepared for burial, a group of Babylonian philosophers found said book, and this is when they were visited by an angel who told them to hide the book from the unworthy. Yeah, only the worthy can read this one. They then placed a spell on the book, which is meant to keep it away from getting into the wrong hands, and it's said to be how the book got its curse in the first place. So, if a friend lets you borrow Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, just ask them. Ask if it's cursed before, you know?